One way of thinking about systems change is to use the analogy of this device. So basically, um, with this device, there are two type of changes we can perform, right? We can load a new app that gives us new capacities. So that's like horizontal learning, right? You add a new thing in your toolkit. And the other thing we can do is to upgrade the operating system. So that's increasing the capacity of what I can do with all the apps. So it's not limited to one specific area. And you can think about that more as vertical development. So when you look from that lens at the evolution of systems, you can differentiating different types of operating systems. So I don't know about you, but when I look at that, I tend to see the same kind of operating systems evolving in many very different systems. And the main arc is from 1.0, authority and input centric, to 2.0, output and efficiency centric, to 3.0, outcome and user centric. Now you switch the perspective to the user, and then finally 4.0, regenerative and ecosystem centric. So today, the mainstream is very much still on 2.0, right? Outcome and efficiency centric. For example, in learning, right, teaching for testing. In health, we have evidence-based medicine. But we, of course, know that real learning is not teaching for testing, right? It has to do with student-centric learning environments. And then what we have been doing in evolving our healthcare delivery systems, the main topic has been, right, moving, now reorganizing these systems through the viewpoint of the patient journey, right? Kind of making them more better work together based on the actual user experience. So that's the good healthcare system. It's the good kind of school. But what's going to be the future? And many of us believe that we are yet at another profound transformation. And so the 4.0 really is about not just the learner-centric delivery of the old curriculum, but really whole person, whole systems learning, really increasing the capacity, right, of learners to sense and shape the future, right? Including, moving, really shifting the center of learning from something that's limited here to the whole person and also the whole system, the whole community. And on the healthcare side, it's no longer just kind of responding to the issues of sickness, but 4.0 really means essentially strengthening the sources of health and the sources of well-being. So a very kind of different approach, kind of that moves way beyond the traditional healthcare system. Now, when you look into farm and food, right, 2.0, that's still the mainstream. Industrial agriculture, monocultures, factory farming, that's where more than half of all our environmental problems are coming from. And we know, of course, what has been happening lately, a lot of laudable movement towards organic or sustainable agriculture, which is really about reducing the negative footprint. That's a step in the right direction. But is it good enough? We don't think so. Many of us don't think so. Many of us believe that regenerative agriculture, right, that really takes the approach of seeing food as a medium for healing planet and people, as a much more profound approach, co-evolving with Mother Nature in a way that is symbiotic, right? And it's not at war with these systems. Sustainability in business. Perhaps that's kind of your line of work, and what's the 2.0 version here? Resource efficiency, right? So we reduce waste, we bring in circular mechanisms, we use the resources with a lot more efficiency. Now, that, of course, still is not changing what we do. So the 3.0 version really is around reshaping what it is, kind of using sustainability as a source for innovating what we are doing. So for example, in the space of mobility, you move from combustion engine to electric vehicle. So that's a really good thing for the known reasons, but does it really address the deeper root issues of sustainable mobility? Maybe not. Maybe I'm still in the morning, now I drive an EV, but I'm still stuck in the same traffic jam. So 4.0 is really applying the lens of sustainability or regeneration to the purpose of business. Really business as a force for good, you could say, and focusing on addressing the deeper systemic issues. That may be sustainable mobility in a city, it may be other topics, but it always deals with the entire ecosystem. So the lens of ecosystem-centric and regeneration-centric is something that is coming into play here, and which is a huge force in the world right now if you think about the movement towards more mission-driven enterprises and mission-driven social enterprises. Finance, right? 2.0, we all know that. Extractive capital, think Wall Street, and what's the main feature is externality blind, right? You just maximize profitability, one variable, and basically ignore everything else. What is it? 3.0, we have been discussing the past 10, 15 years, impact investing, ESG. We become select externality aware. That's a step in the right direction. But does that address the deeper systemic issues? Often it does not. That's what regenerative finance is really about, kind of addressing and transforming the deeper root issues that only can be addressed if you kind of bring together all the key players. And essentially, when you look at the finance sector, the big thing we all need to do, one way or another, is pretty clear, which is we have too much money here in one area, extractive capital, and we have too little here in another area, regenerative capital and finance, which is essentially about regenerating our commons, right? Our ecological, social, and cultural commons. So that's kind of the shift at issue here. And then lastly, philanthropy. So some of us, particularly in the NGO sector, that's kind of a significant source of getting new stuff going, kind of even though it's not kind of earning its own money maybe in the first few years. What's that 2.0 version that's mainstream today? Outcome metrics, right? You need to measure the outcomes. And that has been hugely influential, particularly over the past 15 years. And it's good because you're not wasting resources. And it's very limiting because it's very downstream. And essentially everything that's systemic, that's below the waterline, right, is very difficult to measure short-term in terms of impact, because it's kind of less measurable, less visible, more kind of systemic, and often uses longer cycle times. So that's why we see more recently a shift towards impact investing, towards venture philanthropy. And what we really need kind of is a stronger focus, and it's just beginning to happening now in some areas, regenerative philanthropy in terms of addressing the root issues of ecosystem transformation. In other words, philanthropy that's just not just kind of addressing the symptoms of the issues we have, but really as progressing to the deeper root issues in a way that evolve our essential way of operating towards 4.0. Okay, so if we step back, so what is this? This is a lens. It's a lens how we can look at current reality. And what is it essentially saying? So when I show this to practitioners, to leaders, to change makers, and then ask them, so tell me, where are you in Europe? And regardless which sector really, most people say this, look, in my area of responsibility, I face 4.0 challenges. But the way my own organization and institution is operating, particularly if it's a larger institution, is that it's steeped in 2.0 practices, right? Now, sometimes 1.0, 2.0 hierarchy and competition, right? There can be elements of 3.0, but often this is the disconnect that many people feel. So as a society, we face 4.0 challenges, but our institutional response mechanisms that we see enacted today are limited by 2.0, sometimes elements of 3.0 ways of operating. And that's where we believe, that's what this lens, right, the lens of this matrix, helps us to do, to have a conversation that more of the same is probably not cutting it, that what's really necessary today is not just respond to this challenge or to that challenge, but to profoundly upgrade our operating system. And that's where we believe that constitutes one of the biggest leverage points of our time, which is why we as a community innovate and prototype small ways of doing it to explore this 4.0 way of operating by doing.